I met her during my second year in college. She was different from the other girls, quieter, sharper, and yet her presence felt magnetic. We had been dating for about 3 weeks when she asked to spend the night at my off-campus apartment. I didn't think much of it. At that point, I thought I was lucky, finally meeting someone who seemed mature, grounded, and not into the constant party scene. That night, though, something about her unsettled me. We got into bed, and while I drifted off around midnight, I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of faint movement. When I turned, she was sitting upright, staring at the wall with her eyes wide open. No phone in her hands, no light in the room, just her, breathing slowly. I whispered her name, but she didn't react. My heart started racing, but I told myself maybe she was just thinking or couldn't sleep. I turned over and tried to ignore it. I convinced myself that I was overreacting. The next morning, I brought it up casually over breakfast. She laughed it off and told me she had a habit of overthinking at night. She said it like it was nothing. I wanted to believe her, so I brushed it aside. But in the back of my head, I knew what I saw. It wasn't just overthinking. A week later, she stayed over again. And once again, I woke up to find her upright, motionless, this time with her head slightly tilted toward me. I felt her gaze, though I couldn't make out her eyes in the dark. The silence was unbearable. My chest felt tight, as if I was being watched not just by her, but by something else. I asked, "Are you okay?" And she answered too quickly, like she was rehearsing. "Yeah, just can't sleep." Her voice was flat, almost empty. One Saturday, while she was in the shower, I noticed her bag sitting open on the floor. A small black notebook was half sticking out. I didn't mean to snoop, but something compelled me to look. Inside, I found pages filled with dates, times, and strange descriptions. 3:17 a.m., still awake. 2:54 a.m., he didn't notice. 4:05 a.m., I almost told him. The handwriting was frantic, as if it had been scribbled quickly in the dark. What chilled me most was seeing my own name scattered throughout the entries. Watched him breathe. He shifts at 3:40. He doesn't understand yet. When I closed the notebook, I felt sick. I knew I should confront her, but what could I even say? "I saw your notes about watching me." It sounded insane. Still, I couldn't unsee it. About a month into our relationship, I started noticing small things out of place. My kitchen knives would be moved slightly from where I left them. My front door lock sometimes felt tampered with. One night, I woke up to a faint metallic sound, like something being turned very slowly. When I looked, she was standing at my door, hand on the lock, not moving. I whispered her name, and she froze. For a second, she didn't even breathe. Then, slowly, she turned to me and smiled. I was just making sure it was locked. The way she said it made my blood run cold. Her tone wasn't casual. It was deliberate, like she had been caught and was trying to cover it up. I couldn't shake the thought. Why would she check the lock at 2:45 in the morning when she should have been asleep? My friends started noticing changes in me. They'd ask why I looked so tired, why I was constantly distracted. I didn't know how to explain it without sounding paranoid. One friend, Mark, pulled me aside and said, "Man, I don't know about her. She never blinks. Every time I see her, she just stares like she's studying people." That comment stuck with me. I thought back to the nights I woke up to find her awake, her unblinking eyes fixed on nothing, or maybe fixed on me. And yet, when I tried to tell myself to end it, something about her held me. It was as if she knew exactly what to say to pull me back in. She started asking why I wasn't inviting her over as much. "You don't trust me?" she asked one evening, her tone soft but heavy, like an accusation. The way she said it made me feel guilty, like I was abandoning her. One night, after avoiding her for almost 2 weeks, I finally gave in and let her stay over. Around midnight, I pretended to be asleep, hoping to catch her in the act. Hours passed. At 3:10 a.m., I heard the faint scratching of pen on paper. I opened my eyes just a sliver, enough to see her writing in that black notebook, her posture stiff, her hand trembling. I waited, heart pounding, until she whispered something under her breath. I couldn't make out all of it, but I heard my name. Then she repeated, almost ready. That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I sat up suddenly, pretending I had just woken up. She jumped, shoved the notebook under the blanket, and gave me that same practiced smile. "Couldn't sleep again," she said. But this time I didn't buy it. I knew something was very, very wrong. By this point, every instinct in me screamed to get out. I rehearsed how I'd end things, but every time we talked, she'd twist it back on me. "You're imagining things. You're not sleeping well. Maybe you're the one with the problem." The gaslighting worked enough to make me doubt myself, but deep down, I knew. The notebook, the staring, the late-night lock-checking. This wasn't just insomnia. This was something else entirely. I realized I was scared of her. Not scared for her, but scared of what she was capable of. And yet, she wanted to stay over more often. She wanted to be closer. She wanted something I didn't understand. And the night I finally decided to confront her, everything unraveled in ways I could never prepare for. The night I chose to confront her, I made sure to lock my phone in my desk drawer, recording audio in case I needed proof later. When she came over, everything felt off from the start. She didn't smile the way she usually did. Her expression was fixed, unreadable, like she already knew what was coming. We sat in silence for almost half an hour before I finally asked, "Why do you write about me at night?" I tried to keep my tone steady, but I could hear the tremor in my own voice. For the first time since we met, she broke eye contact. Her breathing quickened and she whispered, "You weren't supposed to see that." Then she looked at me again, her eyes wide, her face pale. I was preparing. My stomach dropped. Preparing for what? The words echoed in my head, and I realized I didn't want to hear the answer. I didn't sleep that night. Around 2 a.m., I heard her moving around again. This time, instead of sitting upright in bed, she stood in the kitchen, clutching one of my knives. She wasn't cooking. She wasn't moving. She was just holding it, staring at the wall. I didn't ask questions. I didn't wait for explanations. I quietly grabbed my wallet, slid my phone from the drawer, and stepped into the hallway without my shoes. My heart pounded so loudly I thought she'd hear it, but I kept walking down the stairs, out the building, and into the freezing night air. I never went back to that apartment. The next morning, I had a friend collect my things while she was gone. I blocked her on everything and transferred to a different housing complex by the end of the week. To this day, I wonder what she was preparing for. Was it me? Was it herself? Or something else entirely? I'll never know. What do you think she meant by almost ready? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm still searching for answers. When I first met her, she seemed like the kind of girl you could bring home to your family. We met through mutual friends at a small house party. She wasn't loud or overly flirtatious, just calm, reserved, and attentive in a way that made me feel seen. Within a month, we were inseparable. I felt lucky. She wasn't glued to her phone, didn't constantly chase attention, and seemed genuinely interested in me. We'd go on late-night walks around campus, and she always asked deep, personal questions that made me feel like she really wanted to know me. I thought, this is what a real relationship feels like. It wasn't about surface-level attraction. It felt intentional. But even from the beginning, there were subtle moments that made me pause. Sometimes, when I asked her questions about her past, she'd give vague answers, change the subject, or simply smile and ask me something else instead. I told myself she was just private, that not everyone wanted to share everything right away. Still, there was a heaviness to her silences that I couldn't explain. It felt less like shyness and more like concealment. I ignored it because everything else about her seemed perfect. But deep down, I think I knew the silence wasn't innocent. The first Real crack appeared on a rainy Thursday night. We were supposed to meet at my apartment, but she showed up late, soaking wet, without an umbrella. When I asked where she'd been, she hesitated before saying she lost track of time. Her tone was flat, her eyes distant. When she went to the bathroom to dry off, I noticed something strange. Her jacket pocket was slightly open, and inside was a keychain I had never seen before, engraved with initials that weren't hers. At first, I thought maybe it was from a friend or family member, but when I asked about it later, she dismissed it quickly. Just something I found. That answer didn't sit right with me. Who just carries around a stranger's keychain? And why hide it? I wanted to push further, but something about the way she looked at me made me stop. Her expression wasn't angry, it was cold, almost like a warning. We ended the night quietly, but I couldn't shake the image of that keychain. It felt symbolic, like a tiny window into a part of her life she was desperately trying to keep closed. A few weeks later, I went over to her place for the first time. It was a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. Everything looked neat, too neat, actually. Every book aligned perfectly, every drawer closed, every object in its place. It felt staged, like a model home rather than a real apartment. But what really caught my attention was the locked door at the end of the hallway. When I asked her what it was, she said it was just a storage room she never used. The answer came too quickly, rehearsed almost, and when I have jokingly asked for a peek, her reaction was instant and sharp. No, not that room. Her tone cut through me. She didn't laugh it off. She didn't smile. Her whole demeanor shifted for a second, her face tightening in a way I hadn't seen before. Then she forced a smile and changed the subject. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. That door haunted me. Why would anyone lock a room in their own apartment unless they were hiding something? My curiosity grew stronger every time I visited, but so did my unease. It felt like the locked door was more than just wood and metal. It was a barrier she didn't want me to cross. It wasn't long after that when she started disappearing. Sometimes she'd cancel plans at the last minute, claiming she wasn't feeling well. Other times, she'd go completely silent for hours, only to reappear with vague excuses. I tried to be understanding, but the more it happened, the more suspicious it felt. One night, I decided to stop by her place unannounced. I knew it wasn't the most respectful move, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. When I got there, her lights were on, but she didn't answer the door. I knocked again. Silence. Finally, I texted her, saying I was outside. Within minutes, the lights went out, and I heard the faint shuffle of footsteps. I stood there in the rain, staring at the darkened window. Why would she pretend not to be home? The next day, when I confronted her, she smiled sweetly and said she had been asleep. But I knew she was lying. I had seen her shadow move behind the curtain. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept asking myself, what is she hiding? Who is she when I'm not around? The thought that there might be someone else, or something else, gnawed at me. The breaking point came one afternoon when she left her purse in my car. I wasn't snooping at first. I was looking for her phone because it wouldn't stop buzzing. But when I opened the bag, what I found froze me. Inside were two different IDs, both with her picture, but different names. One listed her as a graduate student in psychology. The other identified her as an administrative assistant at a law firm across town. I couldn't process it. Why would someone need two completely separate identities? Alongside the IDs were receipts from places she told me she'd never been, and a small notebook filled with addresses and names I didn't recognize. My chest tightened as I flipped through it. It didn't feel like random notes. It felt like a record, like she was tracking people. When I confronted her later, she didn't deny it. She just smiled and said, "You're better off not knowing." That single sentence was worse than any excuse. It wasn't even a lie, it was an admission. After that discovery, everything changed. I couldn't look at her the same way. Every time she spoke, I wondered which version of herself she was showing me. I stopped inviting her over, stopped answering her calls. But the more I pulled away, the more persistent she became. She'd show up outside my apartment at odd hours, sometimes just standing there in the parking lot, not knocking, not texting, just waiting. My neighbors noticed and asked if I was okay. I'd laugh it off, but inside, I was terrified. The strangest moment came when I finally confronted her outside one night. I shouted, asking why she was stalking me. Her face changed. She tilted her head and whispered, "You weren't supposed to find out. Not yet." Then she turned and walked away, leaving me standing there shaking. Those words replayed in my head for days. Not yet. What did that mean? What was she waiting for? I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every noise in the hallway made me jump. And then, the night I finally decided to cut her off completely, I found out what was behind that locked door, and it still keeps me awake at night. It happened on a night I wish I could erase from memory. She had invited me over again, and against all logic, I went. Part of me still wanted answers, wanted closure. The apartment was silent, except for the faint hum of the fridge. She seemed calm, too calm, as if she had been expecting me. While she was in the kitchen, I noticed her keys sitting on the coffee table. My eyes drifted down the hallway to the locked door that had haunted me for weeks. My hand shook as I picked up the keys. I told myself I was just going to look, just a quick glance, and then leave. The lock clicked open with a metallic snap, and the door creaked wide. Inside, the room was dimly lit by a single bulb swinging gently from the ceiling. On the walls were pinned photographs, dozens of them. Some were of strangers, some of her co-workers. But what made my blood run cold were the photos of me, taken at odd times, walking class, eating lunch, sleeping in my own apartment. In the corner was a box filled with personal items of mine I hadn't even realized were missing. Old receipts, a pen from my desk, even a spare shirt I thought I'd lost in the laundry. It wasn't just obsession. It was surveillance. The sound of footsteps pulled me out of my shock. I spun around to see her standing in the doorway, her face half hidden in shadow. She didn't look surprised. She didn't even look angry. She just smiled faintly, like I had finally caught up to a secret she'd been waiting for me to discover. "You weren't supposed to see this yet," she said quietly. Her tone wasn't defensive. It was final, as if my finding out was part of some plan I hadn't been told about. I stammered, asking what all of it meant, why she had pictures of me, why she had multiple identities. Her expression shifted, and for the first time, her calm facade cracked. Her voice dropped into something cold and unfamiliar. "You don't understand who I am." She stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. "But you will." I pressed myself against the wall, my heart pounding so hard, I thought it might give out. She was blocking the only exit, and the air felt suffocating. My mind raced for escape, but my body felt rooted to the floor. That's the moment I realized I wasn't dating a girl who was keeping secrets. I was dating someone living an entirely different life, and I had stumbled too far into it. I don't remember exactly how I got out. The next minutes are a blur of adrenaline and terror. I think I shoved past her, maybe even knocked her into the wall. All I know is I was suddenly outside, sprinting down the stairwell, my chest burning as I gasped for air. I didn't stop until I reached my car, hands trembling so badly I dropped my keys twice before finally starting the engine. I drove aimlessly for hours, afraid to go home, afraid she would follow me. When I finally did return, I locked every door and window and barely slept. For weeks afterward, I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting her to be standing outside my building, watching. I never went back to her apartment. I blocked her on everything and changed my number. But sometimes late at night, I get the uneasy feeling that someone was still watching me, that maybe she still knew where I lived. It's been years now and I've tried to move on, but I still think about that locked room. I still see those photographs in my mind. And most of all, I hear her voice in the doorway. "You don't understand who I am." What do you think she meant by that? Was she dangerous? Or was she part of something bigger I never uncovered? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because I've never found the courage to dig any deeper. I never planned on living with a girlfriend so soon. We had only been dating for 4 months, but when her lease fell through, she asked if she could stay at my place for a while. At first, I was hesitant. I liked my independence, and moving in together felt rushed. But she reassured me it would only be temporary, just until she found a new place. The first few weeks were surprisingly easy. She was neat, helped with groceries, and made my apartment feel warmer than it had before. I thought maybe this was a good thing. Maybe we were taking a big step earlier than expected, but in a natural way. Then the odd behavior started. She never let me see her phone, not even for something small like looking up directions. If I reached for it absent-mindedly, she'd snatch it back immediately, her smile too tight to feel casual. I told myself everyone deserves privacy, but her reaction seemed extreme. The unease grew at night. Sometimes I'd wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, and she wouldn't be in bed. I'd find her sitting at the kitchen table in the dark, staring blankly out the window. When I asked what she was doing, she'd answer, "Just thinking," and shuffle back to bed. Over time, her disappearances became more frequent. She would leave the apartment for hours, sometimes overnight, with vague explanations like, "I had to clear my head." At first, I worried for her. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe she had family issues she hadn't opened up about. But the longer it went on, the more suspicious it became. One night, she left around midnight. By 3 a.m., I couldn't sleep and decided to take a drive to clear my own mind. On the way back, I saw her across town, walking briskly down an empty street with her hood pulled up. She didn't see me, and I didn't stop. Something about the way she moved, fast, determined, secretive, made me grip the steering wheel tighter. The next morning, when I asked where she had been, She told me she stayed in bed all night. I froze, realizing she was lying directly to my face. I didn't call her out on it right away. Instead, I nodded, pretending to believe her, though inside my stomach churned. It wasn't just the lie that disturbed me. It was how effortlessly she delivered it, with no flicker of guilt in her eyes. I started noticing other things. My laptop, which I always kept closed, would be open when I came home, browser history wiped clean. My notebooks shuffled out of order, as though someone had flipped through them quickly. Even my bank statements started showing small charges from stores I'd never visited. When I confronted her about the receipts, she laughed and said I was too paranoid. She brushed it off with a casual tone, but there was a sharpness in her eyes, like she was daring me to press further. One day while she was showering, I finally looked into her bag. Inside, I found items that made my blood run cold. A stack of SIM cards, a second phone I'd never seen, and a small collection of men's wallets. None of them were mine. None of them had names I recognized. I put everything back quickly before she came out, but the image stuck in my mind. I was living with someone who had another life, and I had no idea what that life entailed. It wasn't long before the paranoia became unbearable. I started pretending to sleep at night, just to see what she'd do. Around 1:30 a.m., I'd hear her moving around quietly, tiptoeing near my desk, opening drawers with painful slowness. One night, I cracked my eyes open slightly and saw her kneeling by my dresser, rifling through papers. She wasn't looking for something in particular. She was cataloging, memorizing. I realized with horror that she was studying me the same way someone studies a target. When I sat up suddenly, pretending to be groggy, she froze. Then she forced a smile and said, "Sorry, I was looking for my earring." Her lie was flimsy, and we both knew it, but she delivered it with such calmness, like she rehearsed excuses for every scenario. I couldn't sleep after that. The thought that the woman lying next to me at night might not be my girlfriend at all, but a stranger wearing a mask made my skin crawl. Ask, would you confront someone after catching them in your private space, or would you pretend you didn't notice, just to stay safe? A few weeks later, she vanished completely. One morning, I woke up and she was gone. Her clothes were missing, her bag gone, her toothbrush out of the bathroom. At first, I panicked, thinking something terrible had happened. I called her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. I checked with our mutual friends. None of them had seen her. Some even said they weren't sure her real name was the one she'd given me. That was when the dread set in. Had I been dating someone who never existed in the first place? Days turned into weeks, and I heard nothing. No messages, no emails, nothing. My apartment felt hollow, and every object she had touched seemed contaminated by questions I couldn't answer. Who was she? Where had she gone? And most importantly, why did she leave so suddenly? But just as I was starting to move on, something happened that froze me in my tracks. A letter appeared under my door. No return address, no stamp, just my name written in her handwriting. CTA. If someone who disappeared from your life suddenly left you a letter, would you open it right away or burn it without a second thought? My hands trembled as I tore the envelope open. Inside was a single sheet of paper with just 3 words. You weren't ready. That was it. No explanation, no closure, no apology. Just those words. I read them over and over, trying to decipher the meaning. Ready for what? Was it a warning? A threat? Or was she telling me that our entire relationship had been a test for something I couldn't understand? The more I thought about it, the more paranoid I became. I started checking my locks 3 times a night, covering my webcam, even sleeping with the lights on. I couldn't shake the feeling that she hadn't truly left, that she was still watching me from somewhere, waiting. Every time my phone buzzed, I half expected it to be her. Every time I saw someone with a hood on the street, I wondered if it was her in disguise. The line between reality and paranoia blurred until I wasn't sure what was real anymore. And then, one night, I woke up to find something in my apartment that proved she had never left me at all. It was 3 a.m. when I jolted awake to a sound coming from the kitchen. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but then I heard the unmistakable sound of the cabinet door closing. Slowly, I got out of bed and crept down the hall. The kitchen was dark, but something was off. My fridge door was slightly open, the light spilling onto the floor. Inside, some of the food was missing, small things like bread slices and yogurt containers. It wasn't a break-in. It was careful, subtle. Someone had been living here undetected. I checked the rest of the apartment, my pulse hammering in my ears. In the closet near the hallway, I found it, a blanket folded neatly and a half-empty water bottle tucked behind my luggage. She had been staying here, coming and going whenever she wanted, watching me even after I thought she was gone. I stumbled back, my hands shaking, my throat dry. She hadn't vanished. She had embedded herself into my life in ways I couldn't see. And maybe she never planned on leaving at all. Imagine thinking your girlfriend disappeared, only to realize she never left your home in the first place. What would you do after discovering the blanket and water bottle? I couldn't stay in the apartment. I packed a bag and spent the night at a friend's place. But the fear never left me. Every creak of their house, every shadow in the corner, made me think she had followed me there. The next morning, I gathered the courage to return home. When I walked in, everything looked exactly the same, except for one detail that froze me in my tracks. On my bed was a letter I had hidden in my desk drawer, the one that said, "You weren't ready." She had been back while I was gone. She had been in my bedroom, in my private space, while I was desperately trying to escape her. That realization broke something in me. I wasn't just afraid anymore, I felt hunted. I tried calling the police, but without evidence of a crime, they brushed me off. "Maybe a roommate, maybe you misplaced it," they said. But I knew the truth. She was inside my walls, slipping in and out of my life like smoke. Have you ever felt powerless? Like no matter what you do, someone is always one step ahead of you? That's how she made me feel. I decided to move out. I packed everything I could into boxes and arranged to stay with my brother across town. But on my last night in the apartment, something happened that I will never forget. As I was sealing the final box, the power went out. Total darkness swallowed the room. My phone flashlight barely cut through it, but in the silence, I heard it, the sound of breathing. Slow, steady, controlled, coming from the hallway. My chest seized as I shined the light toward the door. Nothing. I took a step back, heart pounding, when I noticed something on the wall that hadn't been there before. Written in black marker were the words, "Now you're ready." I don't remember running. I don't remember locking the door. All I remember is the sound of my own panic sobs as I drove through the night, leaving everything behind. I never went back. My lease ended untouched, my belongings abandoned. To this day, I don't know who she really was, what she wanted, or why she chose me. But I do know this. She never truly vanished. She made sure I would always carry her presence with me, like a shadow I can't escape. What do you think she meant by "now you're ready"? Ready for what? Let me know in the comments, because I still don't have an answer. I was never the type to believe in the supernatural. My fears were grounded in reality. Break-ins, stalkers, the kind of things you'd explain logically. That changed the night my girlfriend moved in. She had this fascination with old furniture and decor. At a flea market, she found a large antique mirror, framed in tarnished gold. The glass was slightly warped, but she insisted it had character. We set it up in the bedroom, across from the bed. That was the beginning. The first time it happened, I thought I was just tired. I woke up in the middle of the night and glanced at the mirror. She was lying beside me, fast asleep, but in the reflection, she wasn't asleep at all. Her reflection was sitting upright, staring at me. I bolted upright in bed, heart hammering. When I looked over, she was still asleep, her chest rising and falling steadily. But the mirror, it still showed her staring, expression blank, eyes locked on me. I told myself it was a trick of the light, or maybe my half-asleep brain playing tricks. But over the next few nights, it kept happening. Every time I woke up past midnight, her reflection moved before she did. One night, I tested it. I sat on the edge of the bed and watched. In the mirror, she sat up slowly, though in real life she didn't move. Her reflection turned its head toward me and smiled faintly. That was when I realized whatever I was seeing, it wasn't her. I shook her awake, panicking, and pointed to the mirror. She looked at me with confusion, then at her reflection, which now appeared completely normal. She laughed nervously, told me I needed more sleep, but the way her eyes darted back at the mirror told me she had seen something too. From that night on, she avoided looking into it. She would change clothes with her back turned, brush her hair in the bathroom instead. The mirror wasn't just bothering me anymore, it was bothering her too. Would you throw out the mirror if it was your girlfriend's favorite possession, even if it made you feel like something was watching you at night? Things escalated quickly after that. I woke one night to hear whispering. At first, I thought she was talking in her sleep, but when I turned, her lips weren't moving. The sound was coming from the mirror. I sat frozen, straining to make out the words. It was my name, over and over, whispered in her voice, but with a strange echo, as if two people were speaking at once. The next morning, she seemed distant. She didn't remember whispering, but when she went to brush her hair, she stopped short of the mirror and asked quietly, "Did you hear it too?" That's when I knew I wasn't losing my mind. Later that day, I caught her standing in front of the mirror, completely still. I called her name, and she didn't respond. Only when I touched her shoulder did she jolt back, eyes wide, as if she had been somewhere else entirely. That was when I began to wonder, was the mirror showing me something unnatural, or was it showing me who she really was? One evening, after a long day at work, I came home to find her already in bed. She was turned away from me, breathing slow and steady. I set my bag down quietly and glanced toward the mirror out of habit. That's when I froze. In the glass, she was wide awake, facing me, grinning. Not the kind of grin she ever gave in real life. This was stretched, unnatural, almost mocking. My throat went dry as I looked back at her on the bed, still asleep, still facing away. But the reflection was staring directly into my eyes. I backed up, my pulse hammering so loud it felt like my skull would crack. I couldn't move. I couldn't look away. Then, as if sensing my fear, the reflection slowly raised a hand and waved. I stumbled into the hallway, slamming the bedroom door shut behind me. I slept on the couch that night, lights blazing, trying to convince myself it was just stress. But deep down, I knew the truth. That thing in the mirror wasn't her. It wasn't even pretending to be her anymore. Have you ever seen someone you love make a face that doesn't belong to them? That's how it felt. Like I was staring at a stranger wearing her skin. After that night, things between us began to unravel. She was growing weaker, paler, as though something was draining her energy. I begged her to let me get rid of the mirror, but she refused, insisting it was just an antique and nothing more. Still, she avoided the bedroom as much as I did. Most nights, she'd fall asleep on the couch, muttering that the mirror gave her headaches. But what terrified me most of the times I caught her standing in front of it, completely still, eyes glassy, like she wasn't in control of her own body. Once, I pulled her away, shaking her, and she screamed, not out of fear but rage. Her voice was low, almost guttural. "Don't touch me when she's here." I didn't know what to say. Who was she? From then on, I started covering the mirror with a blanket. But each morning, without fail, the blanket would be back on the floor, neatly folded at its base. Neither of us admitted to removing it, but I knew she hadn't done it, which left only one possibility. That was when I realized the mirror didn't just reflect us. It had a will of its own. The breaking point came late one night. I woke to a sound I can still hear in my nightmares. Laughter. It wasn't hers, but it came from her mouth. I turned and saw her sitting on the bed, eyes locked on the mirror, shoulders trembling as the laughter spilled out. I tried shaking her, calling her name, but she didn't respond. Her reflection, however, did. In the mirror, she was staring right at me, smiling that same stretched grin, while the real her just laughed endlessly beside me. Panicked, I grabbed a mirror and tried to drag it out of the room. But the moment I touched it, a freezing shock ran through my arms, like plunging my hands into ice water. The glass seemed to ripple under my fingers, alive, resisting me. That's when she snapped out of it. She lunged at me, clawing my arms, screaming for me to leave it alone. Her strength was inhuman, her face twisted in fury I had never seen before. For a moment, I didn't even recognize her. It was as if the mirror had taken her place. I shoved her back and bolted from the room, slamming the door behind me. I could hear her sobbing on the other side, begging me to come back, her voice breaking. But I couldn't. I didn't know if it was really her anymore. The next morning, she was sitting at the kitchen table, pale and exhausted, her hands trembling as she clutched a mug of cold coffee. I sat across from her, waiting for her to say something, anything. Finally, she whispered, "It's not me you've been seeing." Her words felt like ice in my veins. I asked what she meant, and she explained that ever since she bought the mirror, she had been feeling less and less like herself. She would lose chunks of time, sometimes hours, only to wake up standing in front of it, staring at her reflection. She admitted that she had seen the other version too, the one that smiled at me, the one that whispered. But she said it didn't feel separate from her. It felt connected, like another side of her was slipping through, using the mirror as a doorway. "I don't know which one of us is real anymore," she said, tears streaming down her face. And the way she looked at me in that moment, desperate and broken, made me realize she was just as terrified as I was. I couldn't take it any longer. That night, while she was asleep on the couch, I grabbed a hammer from the toolbox and marched into the bedroom. The mirror stood there in the moonlight, reflecting me with a faint distortion, almost as if the glass itself was breathing. I raised the hammer and brought it down with everything I had. The impact rang through the room like a gunshot. The glass splintered, spiderweb cracks racing across the surface. And in that fractured reflection, I didn't see myself anymore. I saw her, grinning, multiplied 100 times across the shards. A scream tore through the apartment, not from me, not from her asleep on the couch, but from the mirror itself. The sound was deafening, a shriek that rattled the walls and sent me stumbling backward. I swung again and again until the mirror collapsed in a shower of broken glass. The room fell silent. I was shaking, my hands cut and bleeding, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe, or so I thought, because when I stepped back into the living room, she was gone. I searched the apartment frantically, calling her name, but she had vanished. The couch was still warm where she had been sleeping. The door was locked from the inside. It was as if she had been erased. That's when I saw it. On the wall above the shattered remains of the mirror, written in jagged lines of blood-red glass dust, were the words, "She's home now." I dropped to my knees, the weight of it crushing me. Had I freed her, or had I delivered her completely to whatever was inside that mirror? My mind spiraled with questions, but none of them had answers. Days turned into weeks. I moved out, abandoned everything, tried to start over. But sometimes, late at night, I catch myself glancing at dark windows, shiny surfaces, even puddles on the street. And once in a while, I swear I see her reflection, smiling back at me. Do you think she was possessed? Or do you think she was always meant to be with whatever lived inside that mirror? Let me know what you think, because I'm still not sure if I saved her or if I destroyed her.